horrifyingly, on that freezing Christmas Eve in Koreatown, Los Angeles, when every family was gathering around warm lights and laughter. A 6-year-old black girl in tattered clothes, barefoot and trembling from the cold, suddenly dashed through the packed restaurant, tears streaming down her face, and desperately grabbed the sleeve of a man that the entire city feared, the most notorious underworld boss in Southern California, the one who had made dozens of people vanish without a trace. No one dared to breathe loudly. No one could believe their eyes. And he, Kang Min-jae, the man whose mere glance was enough to send chills down anyone's spine, suddenly bent down, allowing those tiny, ice-cold hands to cling tightly to him. Could a desperate child awaken the long-dead conscience of a cold-blooded killer? Could love blossom between two worlds as far apart as heaven and earth, one of darkness and power, the other of extreme poverty? And what would happen when the entire underworld learned that the coldest boss in Los Angeles had finally found his fatal weakness? Stay with me for the next 30 minutes, because this story will make you cry, will make you believe again in Christmas miracles, and will make you understand that sometimes the greatest love begins with one small, trembling hand on a bitterly cold winter night. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Crimson Romance Stories and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video, comments sharing your emotions, or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. Alright, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. It was Christmas Eve in Koreatown, Los Angeles, and the air outside carried that sharp, biting cold that slips under collars and stings the skin. Inside, Han, Sung, BBQ, my flagship restaurant on Western Avenue, the heat from the tabletop grills rose in shimmering waves, mingling with the scent of sizzling galbi, garlic, and sesame oil. The place was packed, families laughing over banchan, young couples sharing bottles of soju, businessmen closing deals in hushed tones at corner tables. Red and green holiday lights blinked along the walls, trying to look festive. But to me, they only felt like another reminder of how alone I was. I sat at my usual table in the private alcove near the back, the one raised slightly above the main floor so I could see everything and everyone. The staff knew better than to seat anyone else there. My name is Kang Min-jae, 52 years old, fair-skinned, born in Seoul, raised in this city since I was 12. To the people in this room, to most of Los Angeles, really, I am the man you do not look in the eye too long. I own half the underground gambling in Southern California, most of the loan sharking south of downtown, and every protection arrangement from here to Long Beach. On paper, I am just a successful restaurateur with a chain of barbecue houses. In truth, I am the reason certain men disappear and certain debts are paid without question. Tonight I wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit, white shirt open at the collar, no tie. A single glass of chamisul soju rested in front of me, half empty. I had not touched the banchan the server placed before me 20 minutes ago. I rarely eat in public anymore. Food tastes like nothing most days. Inside my chest there was a storm that never settled. Guilt, thick and black as tar, coated every memory of the last 25 years. The faces of men I had ordered gone, the families left behind, the night my wife, Suyeon, was taken from me in a drive-by meant for me. I had built an empire on fear and precision, and I had paid for it with every piece of softness I once possessed. Loneliness had become my closest companion. a cold hand resting permanently on my shoulder. I told myself I preferred it that way. I lied. My lieutenant, Park Tae-sik, stood discreetly near the kitchen entrance, eyes scanning the room the way he had every night for 15 years. 2 more of my men lingered by the front door, dressed as host staff but carrying under their vests. Everyone in the restaurant knew who I was. They smiled politely, bowed slightly when passing my table, spoke a little quieter when they realized I was listening. Fear has its own perfume, subtle but unmistakable. I lifted the soju glass, watched the clear liquid tremble slightly in my hand. My reflection in the dark window beside me looked like a stranger, sharp jaw, pale skin, eyes too old for the face that held them. I wondered, not for the first time, what Soo-yeon would think if she could see me now. Would she recognize the boy who once carried her books through the snow and Seoul? Who promised her a life full of warmth and children and Sunday mornings in church? Or would she only see the man who had traded love for power and then lost both? The noise of the restaurant suddenly dipped, like a wave pulling back before it crashes. Conversations faltered. Forks paused halfway to mouths. I felt the shift before I saw the cause. Every instinct I had honed over decades told me something had just broken the careful order of my world. I turned my head slowly toward the entrance. A little girl no more than 6 years old. African American. Thin coat hanging off narrow shoulders, stood trembling just inside the heavy glass doors. Her braids were coming undone, cheeks streaked with tears and the grime of city streets. She looked half frozen, lips almost blue, eyes wide with terror. The host had started toward her, hand outstretched to stop her. But she slipped past him with desperate speed. She ran straight through the restaurant, weaving between tables, ignoring the gasps and stares, until she reached my alcove. Before Park could intercept her, before anyone could react, she grabbed the sleeve of my $5,000 suit with both tiny, freezing hands. Her voice came out in a broken sob that cut through me like a blade. "Please. Mister, they're saying my mommy stole money. They're gonna take her to jail. It's Christmas. Please. You look strong. Please save her." 81. I looked down into those eyes, brown, huge, swimming with tears, and for the first time in 25 years, the storm inside me went perfectly, terrifyingly still. Something in my chest cracked wide open, and in that silence, I felt the first dangerous, the impossible spark of a feeling I had buried long ago. Her small, ice-cold fingers clamped around the sleeve of my Tom Ford suit like it was the only rope keeping her from drowning. The entire restaurant, 50 tables, more than 200 people had fallen into a hush, so complete I could hear the faint hiss of the grills and the rapid, panicked breathing of the child at my feet. I looked down. Amara Brooks. That was the name she would give me later. 6 years old. Maybe 38 pounds soaking wet. Braids half undone. Cheeks hollow from too many nights when dinner was whatever could be stretched from food bank cans. Her coat was a hand-me-down boy's jacket 2 sizes too big. Zipper broken. Sleeves frayed. Beneath it, a faded pink t-shirt with a cartoon unicorn whose colors had washed out long ago. Her shoes were soaked through, soles flapping slightly with every step she had run across Koreatown's frozen sidewalks. "Mister, please," her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. But it struck me harder than any gunshot I had ever heard. "They're saying my mommy stole money from the tip jar and the register. The manager called the police. They're gonna take her away. It's Christmas Eve. My little brother Jaden is crying. Grandma can't stop shaking. Please. You look like you can make them listen." Those brown eyes, huge, glassy with tears, searched mine with a trust so pure it felt like a blade twisting in my gut. Children should never have to beg strangers for mercy. And yet here she was, on her knees, almost clinging to the sleeve of a man whose hands were stained with more sins than she could ever imagine. I felt the storm inside me roar back to life. Guilt, rage, loneliness, all of it collided in a single, violent surge. For 25 years, I had armored myself against moments like this. Sentiment was weakness. Weakness got people killed. I had learned that lesson the night Suyeon died in my arms on a rain-slicked street in Echo Park. But this child's desperation was stripping that armor away, layer by layer, exposing raw places I had forgotten existed. Park Tae-sik started forward from his post. Ready to remove her gently but firmly, I lifted one hand, barely a motion, and he froze. Every eye in the restaurant was on us now. I could feel their curiosity, their discomfort, their fear of what I might do. I lowered myself slowly until I was at eye level with her. My knees protested. I was not a young man anymore. Up close, the signs of her poverty were heartbreaking. The faint blue shadows under her eyes from sleepless nights listening for eviction notices. The way her lips trembled not just from cold but from hunger. The smell of cheap laundromat detergent clinging to her clothes because they could not afford a washer at home. "What is your mommy's name?" "Sweetheart?" My voice came out softer than I intended, almost foreign in my own ears. Chloe Brooks," she whispered. "She's the best, Mommy. She works 2 jobs so we can have lights and food. She didn't steal anything. I promise on everything. Use sections. Chloe Brooks." I had noticed her before, though I had never spoken to her. One of the evening waitresses, tall, beautiful in a weary way. Skin like polished mahogany. Hair always pulled back in a neat bun. She moved through the tables with quiet efficiency, never complaining, even when customers were rude. Always finding a smile for her children when they waited in the corner booth after her shift. I had seen the exhaustion in her shoulders. The way she sometimes pressed a hand to her lower back as though it ached constantly. I had seen the 2 children, Amara and a younger boy, Jaden, 4 years old, doing homework on napkins because they had no table at home. I had seen the elderly woman in the wheelchair, Dolores, wrapped in blankets, eyes clouded with dementia, waiting patiently for her daughter to finish another double shift. I had seen all of it, and I had done nothing. Until now. "Where is your mommy right now?" I asked. Amara pointed with a trembling finger toward the front counter near the hostess stand. My gaze followed. There she was. Chloe Brooks stood pinned between the manager, Mr. Lee, a man I had personally promoted 3 years ago, and 2 uniformed security guards from the mall across the street that sometimes lent us extra staff for busy nights. Her apron was still tied around her waist, stained with barbecue sauce and soju spills. Her hands were raised slightly, palms open in a gesture of surrender. Tears tracked silently down her cheeks. But she was not sobbing. She was holding herself together with whatever scraps of dignity poverty had left her. Mr. Lee was speaking loudly enough for half the restaurant to hear. $1,200 missing from tonight's tips and register. The camera shows you opening the drawer when no order was placed. We've already called the police. Stealing on Christmas Eve. Chloe, how could you? The accusation landed like a slap. I saw Chloe's shoulders flinch. I saw the humiliation flood her face, cheeks burning, eyes dropping to the floor. Around her, customers whispered. Some shook their heads. No one spoke up for her. Why would they? She was just another poor black waitress in a Korean-owned restaurant. Easy to blame. Easy to discard. I felt something inside me snap, not with noise, but with a cold, precise violence that I usually reserved for business rivals. This was my restaurant, my domain, and in it, a woman who had done nothing but work herself to the bone was being publicly crushed on the eve of Christmas while her children watched. Amara's grip tightened on my sleeve. Please, don't let them take her. I stood slowly, straightening to my full height. The movement drew every eye again. I buttoned my suit jacket with deliberate calm and began walking toward the front. Park fell in silently behind me. The crowd parted like water. When I reached the counter, Mr. Lee saw me and paled. "Mr. Kang, sir, we have a situation." "Explain," I said quietly. My voice carried anyway. He swallowed. The drawer came up short, $1,200. "The footage shows Chloe." "Show me the footage." "Now." "Oh." Within minutes, we were in the small office behind the kitchen. The grainy black and white security video played on the monitor. Chloe did indeed open the register at one point when no customer was at the counter. Her hand moved inside briefly, but something about the angle, the timing, felt wrong. I rewound it 3 times. Then I saw it the assistant manager, a young man named Ji-hoon, leaning in just out of frame moments earlier, his body blocking the direct view. A classic skim. He had taken the money and planted suspicion on Chloe because she was the newest and the poorest, the one least likely to fight back. My blood turned to ice and then to fire. I stepped back into the dining room. Chloe stood exactly where she had been, head bowed, hands clasped in front of her like a penitent. The 2 children had joined her now, Jaden clinging to her leg, face buried in her apron. Amara standing protectively in front, small fists clenched. Dolores sat in her wheelchair nearby, rocking slightly, murmuring the same phrase over and over. "My baby didn't do nothing wrong. My baby didn't." I stopped in front of Chloe. She did not look up at first. When she finally did, her eyes were wide with fear and confusion and something else, resignation. The look of someone who had learned long ago that the world rarely chose fairness when it could choose convenience. "Miss Brooks," I said, my voice low enough that only those closest could hear. "You did not steal anything." "Yeah." Her breath caught. A flicker of hope warred with disbelief in her expression. I turned to Mr. Lee. "The thief is Ji-hoon. He staged it. Fire him immediately. Call the police back and tell them the matter is resolved internally. Then bring me the cash box." "And that's word." Mr. Lee scurried away. I faced Chloe again. She whispered, so softly I almost missed it. Why are you helping me?" I did not have an answer yet. Not one I could speak aloud. Because a 6-year-old girl trusted me when no one else would? Because I recognized the silver dengue hairpin in Dolores's gray hair and remembered a kindness shown to my own mother 33 years ago? Because looking at Chloe's exhausted, beautiful face, I felt something fierce and protective and terrifyingly alive for the first time in decades? All of those, and something more. Something that felt dangerously, impossibly like the beginning of love. I reached into my inner jacket pocket and withdrew the thick roll of hundreds I always carried. I counted out $5,000 more than she would earn in months and pressed it gently into her trembling hand. "For Christmas," I said simply, "for you and your family." In Desperando, within every ones and 10-minute the start, her fingers closed around the money, as though it might vanish. Tears spilled over again. But this time they were different. Shock. Gratitude. Overwhelming confusion. She swayed slightly, and I instinctively reached out to steady her elbow. The touch sent a jolt through me. Electric. Undeniable. Amara launched herself at my legs, hugging tightly. "Thank you, Mr. Thank you." Jaden peeked out from behind his mother and offered a shy, tear-streaked smile, and in that moment, surrounded by the smell of grilled meat and holiday lights, with a restaurant full of strangers watching in stunned silence, I felt the final piece of my carefully constructed armor shatter completely. I was no longer just Kang Min-jae, the feared boss of half of Los Angeles. I was a man who had just found something worth protecting with every ounce of power I possessed, and I knew, with a certainty that both terrified and exhilarated me, that I would never let anyone hurt this family again. The $5,000 was still warm from my pocket when I pressed it into Chloe's hand. Her fingers closed around the bills slowly, as if she expected them to dissolve like some cruel mirage. For a long moment she simply stared at the money, then at me, then back at the money again. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I watched the emotions chase across her face like storm clouds, disbelief first, then a flicker of wild hope, then a wave of shame so deep it made her cheeks burn darker. Around us, the restaurant remained unnaturally quiet. The clatter of chopsticks had stopped. The low hum of conversation had died completely. Every customer, every server, every cook who had peeked out from the kitchen, all of them were watching this impossible scene unfold. The feared Kang Min-jae, the man whose name was whispered in back rooms from Koreatown to Little Tokyo, had just handed a poor waitress enough cash to change her life. And he had done it in front of everyone. Mr. Lee returned with the cash box, face pale and sweating. Ji-hoon, the assistant manager, trailed behind him, trying to look confused. But I caught the flash of panic in his eyes. I ignored him for now. Count it, I told Chloe quietly. Her hands shook so badly she could barely separate the bills. Amara stood on tiptoes beside her, trying to help. Small fingers smoothing the hundreds with reverent care. Jaden clung to Chloe's leg, thumb in mouth, eyes wide. Dolores rocked gently in her wheelchair, murmuring, "Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy." When Chloe finished counting, her voice came out in a broken whisper. $5,000. She looked up at me, eyes swimming. "Sir, I can't. This is too much. I didn't do anything to deserve. You deserve far more than this." I cut in, softer than I intended. The words surprised even me. Inside my chest, the storm was raging harder than ever. Guilt and remorse twisted together with something new, something hot and urgent and terrifying. I wanted to shield her from every cold night she had ever endured. I wanted to erase every hungry evening, every eviction notice, every moment she had lain awake, wondering how to keep her children warm. The feeling was so sudden, so violent. It felt like a heart attack disguised as love. Chloe swayed again, and this time I did not hesitate. I caught her arm, steadying her. The contact sent fire through my veins. Her skin was cool from the restaurant air conditioning, but beneath it I could feel the frantic beat of her pulse. She smelled faintly of barbecue smoke and cheap lavender soap, the kind bought in bulk at the dollar store because it was all she could afford. The contrast between her world and mine hit me like a physical blow, while I sat in heated leather seats of cars that cost more than she earned in years. She walked miles in worn shoes to save bus fare, while I drank 30-year-old scotch alone in a penthouse overlooking the city. She rationed formula and prayed. The electricity stayed on. 1 more month. I don't understand," she whispered, voice trembling with confusion and fear. "Why are you doing this? People like you don't help people like me." When another resonant, "People like you, people like me." The words hung between us, heavy with every unfairness the world had ever invented. I saw the suspicion in her eyes, the cautious, hard-won wariness of someone who had been promised help before and been burned every time. Landlords who raised rent without warning, social workers who judged instead of helped, bosses who docked pay for being 5 minutes late because the bus broke down again. Before I could answer, "Mr. Lee cleared his throat nervously. "Mr. Kang. About Ji-hoon. The footage clearly shows." I turned on him with a look that made him step back. "The footage shows exactly what I said it shows. Ji-hoon skimmed the money and framed Miss Brooks because he thought no one would believe her. Call the police back. Tell them the thief has been identified and terminated. Then pay Miss Brooks every cent of tonight's tips, hers and anyone else's who worked the floor. F it." Mr. Lee nodded frantically and scurried away. Ji-hoon tried to slip toward the exit, but Park Tae-sik blocked his path with one raised eyebrow. The young man froze, sweat beading on his forehead. Chloe watched the exchange with growing bewilderment. You really believe me? I know you're innocent," I said. The certainty in my voice seemed to unsteady her further. She pressed a hand to her chest, as if to calm her heart. Amara tugged at my sleeve again. Mister, does this mean Mommy isn't going to jail? No, sweetheart, I answered, crouching once more to her level. Your mommy is coming home with you tonight, and Santa will still find your house. That made Minderzacker. The little girl's face lit up with a smile so bright it nearly undid me. She threw her arms around my neck in a fierce hug. I froze for half a second, unused to such open affection, then wrapped my arms gently around her thin frame. She weighed almost nothing. I could feel every rib. When she pulled back, Chloe was staring at us with an expression I could not read, part gratitude, part terror, part something deeper and more dangerous. Our eyes met, and for the first time I let her see past the mask. I let her see the loneliness, the remorse, the sudden, overwhelming need to protect her and her children from every cruelty the world still had in store. Her breath hitched. She took one involuntary step toward me, then stopped, as though afraid the ground might open beneath her feet. The moment shattered when Ji-hoon suddenly bolted for the door. Park caught him by the collar and slammed him against the wall, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to make the point. The restaurant gasped collectively. Boss, Park said calmly. What do you want done with him? I stood slowly. Every instinct honed over decades told me to make an example. In my world, theft from one's own was punished severely. But tonight, with Chloe watching, with Amara's trusting eyes on me, I could not be that man. Not completely. Take him outside, I said. Pay him what he's owed minus tonight's skim. Tell him if he ever shows his face in any of my businesses again, he'll regret it. Then let him go. 8. Park's eyebrow rose a fraction, the closest he ever came to surprise, but he nodded. As my men escorted Ji-hoon out, I became aware of another presence near the entrance. 2 men in dark jackets had just entered, runners from a rival faction that had been pushing into Koreatown territory lately. They were supposed to be here for a quiet meeting about holiday protection rates, but their timing felt wrong. One of them, a thick-necked man named Victor, smirked when he saw the commotion. Trouble in paradise? Kang, he called out in accented English. Heard you were going soft these days. What, everyone? The restaurant tensed again. My men shifted position. I felt Chloe move closer to her children instinctively, shielding them with her body. I walked toward Victor slowly, every step measured. When I reached him, I stopped close enough that he had to look up. This is my house, I said quietly. You will show respect, or you will leave without the ability to walk. And Victor's smirk faltered. He glanced at his partner, then back at me. The silence stretched. Finally, he raised both hands in mock surrender. No offense, Mr. Kang. Just checking on our arrangement. Maybe so way. Your arrangement is unchanged, I replied. But push one more inch into my streets, and there will be no arrangement left. And actually wise. He nodded jerkily and backed toward the door. My men followed them out. When I turned back, Chloe was watching me with new fear in her eyes. She had just seen a glimpse of the world I lived in, the threats that shadowed every step. I hated that she had seen it. I'm sorry you had to witness that, I said. She shook her head slowly. You protected us. Again, her voice cracked on the last word. The weight of her gratitude, mixed with her fear, hit me like a tidal wave. I wanted to fall to my knees and beg forgiveness for every moment she had suffered, while men like me profited from the city's darkness. Instead, I reached out and gently brushed a tear from her cheek with my thumb. The touch lingered longer than it should have. Neither of us moved away. In that crowded restaurant, surrounded by strangers and the smell of grilled meat and holiday desperation, something irrevocable passed between us. A spark, a promise, a beginning. I knew then, with absolute certainty, that I would burn the entire city down before I let anyone hurt her again. And God help me, I was already falling. Hard, fast, and without a single safety net. The touch of my thumb against Chloe's cheek lingered far longer than propriety allowed. Her skin was soft, despite the exhaustion etched into every line of her face. And the tear I wiped away was warm, salty, real in a way nothing in my life had felt for years. She did not pull away. Instead, her eyes dark brown, framed by lashes clumped with tears, held mine with a mixture of fear, confusion, and something fragile that might have been wonder. Time slowed. The restaurant noise receded to a distant hum. All I could hear was the ragged sound of her breathing and the thunder of my own pulse in my ears. Then a small voice broke the spell. "Mommy, is Santa still coming?" Amara stood just behind Chloe, one hand clutching her mother's apron, the other reaching toward Jaden, who hid half behind Dolores's wheelchair. The little boy's thumb was still in his mouth, eyes enormous and red-rimmed. Dolores herself sat wrapped in a threadbare blanket that had seen better decades. Her thin shoulders hunched against the restaurant's air conditioning. Her gray hair was pulled back with a simple silver hairpin, a delicate dangy style that caught the overhead light for a fleeting second. That hairpin. My breath caught in my throat. 33 years dissolved in an instant. I saw my mother fresh off the plane from Seoul, speaking almost no English, clutching a toddler me in one arm and a single suitcase in the other, standing outside a tiny Koreatown church on a freezing December night in 1992. We had no money, no place to stay, no food. My mother had been crying quietly when an older African-American woman in a nurse's coat approached her. The woman pressed a warm container of collard greens and cornbread into my mother's hands, along with $20 and that very same silver dengue hairpin. "For your hair, honey," the woman had said in a gentle southern accent. "So you remember you're still beautiful, even when the world tries to tell you different. If it's space actually batters." Her name had been Dolores Brooks. The realization hit me like a freight train. My knees nearly buckled. The storm inside my chest, already raging, became a hurricane. Guilt, remorse, gratitude, and a love so sudden and fierce it terrified me all collided at once. This was no coincidence. This was fate, cruel and kind in equal measure, reaching across decades to demand payment on a debt I had never known existed. I dropped my hand from Chloe's cheek and turned fully toward the wheelchair. Dolores's eyes were clouded with dementia now, but they still held the same kindness I remembered from that long-ago night. "Ma'am," I said, my voice rough. I actually knelt on the polished floor of my own restaurant, bringing myself to her level. "Do you remember a young Korean woman with a little boy? Christmas time, outside the old church on 8th Street. Dolores blinked slowly. For a moment I thought the question was lost in the fog of her illness. Then her face softened. "Pretty lady, crying in the cold. Gave her my pin so she'd feel pretty again." A faint smile touched her lips. "Lord works in mysterious ways." Askredded, the words undid me completely. I reached out and gently took her frail hand in mine. It was paper-thin, cold, trembling slightly. "You saved us that night," I whispered. "You saved my mother. And me?" "Well," Chloe made a small sound, half gasp, half sob. She swayed again, and this time I rose quickly to steady her. Her body leaned into mine for support, light as a bird, and I felt every fragile bone. She was burning up with emotion, skin fever hot beneath the exhaustion. Amara tugged at my suit jacket now. "Mister, you know Grandma from before?" I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Jaden peeked out, curious despite his fear. "And Santa?" Amara pressed, her voice small but insistent. "Mommy always says if we're good, he comes. But we don't have a chimney, and Mommy said the lights might go off again tomorrow if the bill..." Her words trailed off. She didn't need to finish. I saw it all in her face, the worry no 6-year-old should carry. The nights she had gone to bed hungry so her brother could have more. The times she had pretended to be asleep while her mother cried over overdue notices. The Christmas wishes whispered into the dark for things as simple as new shoes without holes. I looked at the bare Christmas tree I had glimpsed through the office window earlier, a tiny plastic thing in the corner booth where the family sometimes waited, decorated only with paper chains and crayon drawings because real ornaments were a luxury they could not afford. Something inside me ruptured completely. I had spent my life accumulating power and wealth to protect myself from ever feeling helpless again. And here was helplessness personified, 3 generations, crushed by poverty's relentless weight, standing in my restaurant on Christmas Eve. I straightened, keeping one arm around Chloe's waist, because she still seemed unsteady. "Park," I called quietly. My lieutenant appeared at my side instantly. "Sir?" "Clear my schedule for the rest of the night. Have the Escalade brought around front. And call Dr. Kim Soo-jin, tell her it's urgent. Family emergency. Do a Sem, who placed of the W again." Park's eyes widened fractionally, the closest he ever came to shock, but he nodded and moved away. Chloe found her voice. "Mr. Kang, sir, what are you doing?" "I'm taking you home," I said simply. "All of you. S.Y." Her eyes filled again. We live in South Los Angeles. It's not a nice place. You don't have to. I'm taking you home," I repeated, firmer this time. The possessiveness in my tone surprised even me. Outside, the cold December wind whipped down Western Avenue as my black Escalade pulled up. My driver held the door. I helped Dolores into the heated back seat first, lifting her wheelchair into the trunk myself. When the staff hesitated, Jaden climbed in next. Then Amara, who paused to look up at me with solemn eyes. "You're really coming with us?" "Yes." "Well, problems." She considered this, then nodded, as though I had passed some important test. Chloe hesitated longest. She stood on the sidewalk in her thin waitress shoes, apron still tied, clutching the $5,000 like a lifeline. Snow flurries had begun to fall rare for Los Angeles, magical and cruel at once. "I don't understand any of this," she whispered. "People like you don't get involved with people like us." I was not. I stepped closer, shielding her from the wind with my body. "Tonight, I'm not people like me. Tonight, I'm the man whose mother was saved by yours, and I'm paying that debt forward." "Yes," her lower lip trembled. "But $5,000, taking us home, calling a doctor, it's too much." "It's dual. It's not enough," I said fiercely. "Not even close. Thanks for watching." I opened the passenger door for her. After a long moment, she climbed in. As we pulled away from the restaurant, I caught sight of Victor and his partner again watching from across the street. Expressions dark, they had not left after our earlier exchange. One of them raised a phone to his ear. Trouble was coming. I could feel it. But for now, in the warm cocoon of the Escalade, with Chloe beside me and her children safe in the back, I allowed myself one quiet moment of reflection. Amara's voice floated up from the rear seat. "Mommy, the nice man has heat in his car, and it smells good. Like new. It is kind of placed." Chloe let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "I know. Baby. I know. It's that." Dolores murmured something about angels, and I Kang Min-jae. The most feared man in half of Los Angeles sat gripping the armrest, heart pounding with a mixture of terror and exhilaration I had not felt since the night Soo-yeon died. Because I knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever came next, rival gangs, old debts, my own dark past, I would face it all. For them, for her, the love that had sparked in the restaurant was no longer a spark. It was a wildfire, consuming every careful wall I had built around my heart. And I welcomed the flames. The Escalade glided south through the glittering arteries of Los Angeles, past the bright lights of downtown and into the darker, narrower streets of South Los Angeles. Snow flurries danced in the headlights, unusual. Almost miraculous for this city, and for a moment, the world felt hushed, suspended between the cruelty of winter and the promise of Christmas. Inside the cabin, warmth enveloped us like a blanket. The children had fallen quiet, awed by the soft leather seats and the gentle hum of the engine. Jaden's head rested against Dolores's arm, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Amara sat, pressed to the window, watching the city slide by with wide-eyed wonder. Chloe sat beside me in the front passenger seat, hands clasped tightly in her lap. The roll of $5,000 hidden inside her apron pocket, as though it might vanish if she let it go. I kept my eyes on the road, but every fiber of my being was aware of her. The faint scent of barbecue smoke still clung to her hair. Her breathing was shallow, quick, the breathing of someone waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wanted to reach over and take her hand, to tell her that the falling had already happened, that I had fallen, completely and irrevocably, but the words felt too large, too dangerous. In the fragile silence, Dolores shifted in the back seat, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. As Chloe turned to readjust it, the overhead streetlights caught the silver dengue hairpin holding back the older woman's gray hair. It gleamed for an instant, a delicate traditional Korean ornament, narrow and elegant, the kind my mother had worn only on special days. My heart stopped. Then it slammed against my ribs with a force that made my vision blur. I pulled the Escalade to the curb on a quiet stretch of Florence Avenue, hands gripping the wheel so tightly the leather creaked. The sudden stop jolted everyone. "Mr. Kang?" Chloe's voice was small, frightened. "Is something wrong?" I could not answer yet. I turned slowly in my seat to look at Dolores. The memories flooded in, sharp and merciless. December 1992. I was 12 years old, newly arrived in America. My mother had sold everything we owned in Seoul to buy 2 one-way tickets. We landed at LAX with 1 suitcase and $47. The first week we slept in a church basement on Olympic Boulevard. My mother cried every night, trying to hide it from me. On Christmas Eve, she had taken me to a small Korean church for a community meal. Outside afterward, in the freezing rain, she had broken down completely, kneeling on the wet sidewalk, sobbing into her hands. That was when the woman appeared, an African-American nurse in a long wool coat, just getting off her shift. She had knelt beside my mother without hesitation, wrapped her in a hug, and pressed a warm Tupperware of food into her hands. Then she had reached into her own hair. They removed her silver dengue hairpin, the one her own mother had brought from Alabama, and pinned it gently into my mother's dark hair. "So you remember you're still beautiful," she had said, "and so your little boy sees it too." To the Jumins, my mother had worn that pin every day until the day she died. And now it was in Dolores Brooks's hair. The coincidence? No. The providence of it crashed over me like a tidal wave. Every wall I had rebuilt after Soo-yeon's death, every layer of ice I had wrapped around my heart, shattered in that single moment. "Dolores," I said, my voice rough, barely recognizable. "That pin, where did you get it?" The older woman blinked slowly, the fog of dementia parting just enough for memory to surface. "Gave it away, long time ago. Pretty Korean lady crying outside the church. Little boy holding her hand. Thought she needed to feel pretty more than I did." Chloe's hand flew to her mouth. "Mama, you never told me that story." "It's Mater," Dolores smiled faintly. "Some kindnesses you just do, don't need telling." End quote. I felt tears, actual tears, burning in my eyes. I, who had not cried since Soo-yeon's funeral, who had ordered men to their ends without flinching, was coming apart in the front seat of my own car. "That Korean lady was my mother," I said, the words scraping out. "You saved us that night. You gave us hope when we had none. And now, 33 years later, your daughter and your grandchildren are suffering the same cold." Itself, the silence that followed was sacred, Amara's small voice broke it. So, Grandma was your angel once? I laughed, a broken, wet sound. Yes, sweetheart, she was. I mastivai. Chloe was staring at me, eyes wide with shock, confusion, and something that looked dangerously like the beginning of trust. This can't be real, she whispered. Things like this don't happen to people like us. In the streets, Canafetted is. They do tonight, I said fiercely. I pulled back onto the road. But the drive to their apartment felt different, now charged with destiny. When we arrived at the tired two-story building on 89th Street, the contrast between my world and theirs struck me like a physical blow. The complex was old stucco, paint peeling, security gates rusted. A single string of Christmas lights flickered weakly on one balcony. The stairwell smelled of damp concrete and fried food. Chloe led us up to the second floor, apologizing under her breath the entire way. I'm sorry, it's small, and the heat doesn't always. I silenced her with a gentle hand on her arm. You have nothing to apologize for. And a seconder, arconic. Inside, the apartment was heartbreaking in its bareness. One small living room with a sagging couch and a 13-inch television on a milk crate. A kitchenette with a card table and 4 mismatched chairs. A tiny artificial Christmas tree on the floor, no stand. No ornaments, except paper snowflakes. The children had cut from old homework. The refrigerator hummed weakly when Chloe opened it to offer me water. I saw almost nothing inside, half a loaf of white bread, a jar of peanut butter, a few eggs. Jaden ran to the tree and carefully placed a new paper ornament he had made at school. Amara watched me with cautious curiosity. Dolores settled into her recliner, the only comfortable chair wrapped in the same thin blanket. I stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by their poverty, and felt the full weight of my own wealth like an accusation. My penthouse downtown had heated floors, a sub-zero refrigerator always stocked, art on the walls, worth more than this entire building, and yet I had lived in isolation while this family, descendants of the woman who had saved my mother, fought for every scrap. Chloe hovered near the kitchenette, twisting her hands. Can I make you tea or something? No, I said softly. Sit, please. Thanks for watching. Well, and Dona the screed buddy, she obeyed, perching on the edge of the couch as though ready to spring up again. The exhaustion in her posture was profound, shoulders curved inward, eyes shadowed from countless sleepless nights, worrying about bills. I knelt in front of Dolores again. Thank you, I said simply. For my mother. For me, the old woman reached out a trembling hand and patted my cheek. God don't make mistakes. Child, he just takes his time. Ist. Dr. Kim Soo-jin arrived 20 minutes later, my personal physician, the best geriatric specialist in the city. She examined Dolores gently, while Chloe watched with anxious eyes. When the doctor prescribed new medications and arranged for home nursing starting tomorrow, Chloe began to cry silently. Outside, my phone buzzed. Park's voice was low. Boss, Victor's crew is circling the block. They followed us. Want me to handle it? I stepped onto the tiny balcony, cold air hitting my face. Below, 2 dark sedans idled at the curb. Victor leaned against one, smoking, watching the building. I went downstairs alone. The street was quiet except for distant sirens. Victor straightened as I approached. Nice neighborhood, he said mockingly. Didn't know you made house calls now. Maybe so bitter. That is Christdivide. This family is under my protection, I said, voice deadly calm. Any move against them is a move against me. That's with colleges. He laughed. All this for a waitress? Words spreading. Kang. People saying the Iceman's gone soft. It's 7 times. I stepped closer until we were inches apart. Tell your boss if he wants war. He can have it. But if a single hair on their heads is harmed, I will end him. slowly. I think. Victor's smirk faded. He looked into my eyes and saw I meant every word. He backed away. Hands raised. Message received. Okay. The sedans pulled away. When I returned upstairs, Chloe was waiting at the door. Face pale. Was that about us? Yes, I said. And it's handled. Because of the Porden. She searched my face. Fear and gratitude warring. You don't even know us. And I was I know enough. Whether absent, the room felt smaller suddenly. Charged with unspoken things. I moved toward her. Drawn by a force I could no longer resist. When I reached her, I cupped her face gently in both hands. Chloe, I whispered. Look at me. She did. Eyes shimmering. I don't understand what's happening either, I said, but from the moment your daughter grabbed my sleeve, something in me woke up. And when I realized your mother saved mine, it stopped being chance. It became debt. And destiny. There's notice. Her breath trembled. I'm scared, she admitted in a tiny voice. Me too, I confessed. Then, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, I leaned in and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, reverent, but when her lips parted on a quiet gasp and her hands rose to grip my jacket, the kiss deepened into something fierce, desperate, alive. Years of loneliness, of cold nights and empty victories, poured out of me into that kiss. And I felt her answering with the same hunger, the hunger of someone who had carried too much alone for too long. When we broke apart, foreheads resting together, both of us were breathing hard. Outside, snow continued to fall on Los Angeles, a Christmas miracle for a city that rarely saw it. Inside, a different kind of miracle had begun, and I knew, with a certainty that both terrified and exalted me, that I would never be the same man again. The kiss ended, but the fire it lit stayed burning. Chloe's forehead rested against mine, both of us breathing like we had run miles. Her hands stayed fisted in the lapels of my jacket. Mine stayed cradling her face. Neither of us moved. We simply stood there on the tiny balcony while snow fell in slow, perfect flakes around us. The first real snow Los Angeles had seen in 20 years. Inside the apartment, the children had fallen asleep on the couch, Jaden curled into Amara's side. The thin blanket pulled over them both. Dolores dozed in her recliner. The new medications, doctor. Kim had given her already working their gentle magic. Chloe finally spoke. The voice so soft it barely carried over the wind. I've never been kissed like that before. Her confession landed like a stone in still water. Ripples of shame and wonder crossed her face at once. I mean, not like I'm sorry. That sounded stupid. Inijis. I shook my head slowly. It didn't sound stupid. It sounded honest. I brushed my thumb along her lower lip, still swollen from our kiss. And I've never kissed anyone like that before either. Not even my wife. Suker, her eyes widened. The mention of Suyeon hung between us real. Painful. Necessary. She's gone, I said quietly. 25 years. Car accident. They meant it for me. I swallowed hard. Since then I've lived like a ghost. Until tonight. 200. Chloe's fingers tightened on my jacket. I'm so sorry. Her voice cracked. And I'm sorry, I said, about people like you and people like me. I didn't mean. I pressed my forehead to hers again. You were right to be afraid. I'm not a good man. Chloe, I've done things, ordered things, that would make you run if you knew. My voice dropped to a raw whisper. But tonight I want to be good. For you? For them? Just once. As accorded. She searched my face for a long moment. Then she nodded small. Trembling, but certain. Okay, she whispered. Just tonight, when first ignited, we went back inside. The apartment felt different now, warmer, even though the radiator still clanked and coughed. Chloe moved quietly to check on the children. I watched her bend over them, tuck the blanket higher, kiss each forehead. The motion was automatic. Exhausted, infinitely tender. My chest ached with something so fierce I almost couldn't breathe. My phone vibrated again. Park. I stepped into the narrow hallway and answered. Boss. Ji-hoon is still outside the restaurant. He's drunk, yelling that you ruined him, and Victor's crew just pulled up again. 2 cars. They're waiting for you to come out. Biu's office A. I closed my eyes. The old life was already clawing back. Keep them away from the restaurant. I'm sending the driver back. Tell Ji-hoon to meet me in the alley behind Han-sung in 10 minutes. Alone. End quote. I ended the call and turned to find Chloe watching me from the doorway. You have to go back, she said. Not a question. Yes. She stepped closer. Will you come back after? The question was so timid, so hopeful. It nearly broke me. I will. I promised. I reached into my jacket. He pulled out another thick roll of cash, $10,000 this time, and pressed it into her hand. This is for tomorrow. Groceries. Heat bill. Whatever you need. There will be more. I swear it. Yes. She stared at the money. Then at me. You're giving me $15,000 tonight. Her voice shook. I've never even held $1,500 at one time. I can't. I cupped her face again. Then start now. And know this. No one will ever take it from you again. X. She rose on her toes and kissed me quick. Fierce. Grateful. When she pulled back, her eyes were shining. Be careful, she whispered. I left the apartment with the taste of her still on my lips. The drive back to Han-sung took 12 minutes. Snow dusted the streets like powdered sugar. When I stepped into the alley behind the restaurant, Ji-hoon was already there, swaying, reeking of soju. Eyes red. You ruined me, he slurred. Fired me on Christmas Eve. My girlfriend's gonna leave me. You think you're God? I walked up slowly until we were face to face. I think I'm the man who caught you stealing from my restaurant and framing an innocent woman. My voice was calm. Lethal. You picked the easiest target. The single mother. The black woman. You thought no one would believe her. You were wrong. Willers, he tried to swing at me. I caught his wrist midair, twisted just enough to make him drop to his knees. No blood. No broken bones. Just pain. You're fired. I said, you're owed 2 weeks' pay. Here it is. I dropped an envelope at his feet, $800. Take it and disappear. If I ever see you again, you won't walk away. Everyone. He stayed on his knees, sobbing. I turned to leave. That was when Victor stepped out from behind the dumpster, 2 men with him, hands in coat pockets. Thought you'd be busy playing Santa? Victor sneered. Instead, you're out here playing tough guy for a waitress. It too is. I faced them slowly. I told you earlier, this family is mine now. My voice carried across the alley like a blade. Walk away. Last warning. Okay, Victor laughed. You're 1 man. We're 3. And we've got friends waiting 2 blocks over. Is next of the block. I smiled cold. Slow. The smile that had made grown men wet themselves. You think numbers matter to me? I raised one hand. From the shadows at both ends of the alley, 8 of my men stepped forward, silent, armed, loyal. Park stood at the front. Expression, blank. Victor's smirk vanished. I stepped closer. Go home to your families. Tell your boss the protection rates in Koreatown stay the same. But South Los Angeles, 89th Street, and everything around it is off limits. Forever. Cross that line again, and I won't send a message. I'll send bodies. Well certain. Victor stared at me for a long beat. Then he nodded once. Sharp. And backed away. His men followed. The alley emptied. Only Ji-hoon remained. still on his knees, clutching the envelope like it was salvation. I looked down at him. "Learn from this," I said quietly. Then I walked away. When I returned to the apartment on 89th Street, the lights were still on. Chloe opened the door before I could knock eyes wide. Anxious. "You're back," she breathed. I stepped inside, closed the door, and pulled her into my arms. She melted against me, trembling. "I was so scared you wouldn't come back." Was Prives, "I will always come back." I whispered into her hair. I felt her tears soak through my shirt. "I don't deserve this," she said. "You deserve the world," I answered, "and I'm going to give it to you." Bye. We stood like that for a long time, two people who should never have met, who the world had tried to keep apart, finally holding on to each other in a bare apartment while snow fell outside. In the quiet, Amara stirred on the couch, half asleep. "Mommy, is the nice man staying?" Chloe looked up at me, eyes shining. "Yes." "Baby," she whispered. "He's staying." Bays. And in that moment, with children sleeping, an old woman dreaming, and snow blanketing the city, I felt the last piece of my old life fall away. I was no longer just Kang Min-jae, the man who ruled with fear. I was the man who had finally found something worth living for, and I would protect it with everything I had. The snow had begun to stick by the time we left the alley behind Hansung BBQ. Thin white layers dusted the windshields and sidewalks, turning the harsh neon of Koreatown into something softer, almost forgiving. I held the passenger door of the Escalade open for Chloe. She paused on the curb, looking up at me with eyes that still carried the shock of everything that had happened in the last 2 hours. "You really don't have to drive us," she said again, voice small against the wind. "The bus stop is just, I'm driving you." I cut in gently but firmly. There was no room for argument in my tone, and she heard it. She nodded, climbed in, and helped buckle the children in the back. Dolores settled into the third row with Jaden on her lap, the boy already half asleep. Amara sat beside them, clutching a paper snowflake ornament she had rescued from the restaurant's lost and found box. The silver dangy pin in Dolores's hair caught the dashboard lights every time we passed under a street lamp, reminding me again of the impossible circle that had brought us here. We pulled away from Western Avenue and headed south. The city changed block by block, bright storefronts giving way to darker streets, holiday lights growing sparser. Chloe gave quiet directions, her voice barely above the heater's hum. I glanced at her profile. High cheekbones sharpened by too many missed meals, full lips pressed together in worry, long lashes casting shadows on cheeks still damp from earlier tears. Every time the car stopped at a light, I felt her tension rise. She kept looking in the side mirror as though expecting sirens or shadows to follow us. I wanted to tell her that no one would touch them tonight, not the police, not bill collectors, not the men who lurked in my world. But promises felt too big yet. Actions would have to speak first. We turned onto 89th Street. The apartment building was exactly as I had pictured from her hesitant apologies. Faded beige stucco, barred windows, a front gate hanging crooked on one hinge. A single strand of multicolored Christmas lights blinked weakly from one balcony. Most of the bulbs were burned out. The parking lot held old cars with duct-taped windows and missing hubcaps. Mine stood out like a spaceship. I parked as close to the entrance as possible. Chloe's hands twisted in her lap. "It's not much," she whispered. "I'm sorry. Is them's. Stop apologizing," I said softly. "You've kept your family together. That's everything. Thanks for watching." I carried Dolores's folded wheelchair from the trunk while Chloe gathered the children. Amara took my free hand without hesitation, small fingers ice cold even through my glove. Jaden rode on my hip, head heavy on my shoulder, the weight of him light. Too light twisted something deep inside me. The stairwell smelled of old cooking oil and damp concrete. Second floor. Apartment 207. Chloe unlocked 3 separate locks, shoulders tense, as though expecting bad news on the other side. When the door swung open, the apartment's reality hit me harder than any rival's threat ever had. One room served as living room, kitchen, and dining area. A sagging couch covered with a faded quilt. A card table with 3 plastic chairs, and 1 wooden one with a missing spindle. The kitchen counter held a hot plate, a microwave older than Amara, and a refrigerator that rattled like it was on its last breath. On the floor in the corner stood the bare Christmas tree I had dreaded seeing, 3 feet tall, artificial needles sparse, decorated only with paper chains, popcorn strings, and crayon drawings folded into stars. No presents underneath. Not one. Amara ran to it immediately, carefully hanging her rescued snowflake. "Look. Mommy, now it's prettier." End quote. Chloe's smile was brittle. "It's beautiful. Baby is gonna 2 ways." I set Jaden down and unfolded the wheelchair for Dolores. The older woman eased into it with a sigh, eyes drifting around the familiar space. "Home," she murmured. "Thank you, Lord and readers." I stood in the center of the room and absorbed every detail. The patched walls, the single space heater struggling against the draft from a cracked window, the stack of overdue bills held to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a sunflower, the pantry door ajar, revealing almost empty shelves, half a box of cereal, a jar of off-brand peanut butter, 3 ramen packets. Chloe hovered, embarrassed. I can make coffee. Or tea. I think there's still some... No, I said. "Sit, please." As a never-well, she perched on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tight. The children climbed up beside her. Sensing the tension, I pulled the card table's wooden chair over and sat facing them, elbows on knees. "Tell me about the bills," I said quietly. Her eyes filled instantly. "Mr. Kang Min-jae," I corrected. "Please." "Arthur," she swallowed. "Min-jae. We're 3 months behind on rent. The landlord's threatening eviction after the holidays. Electricity's 2 months. Gas is shut off, that's why we use the hot plate. Dolores's medications. I stretch them. But," her voice broke, "I work doubles when I can. But daycare costs. And Mama needs someone with her." Each word was a knife in my gut. I had dined in restaurants where 1 bottle of wine cost more than her monthly rent. I had lost more than her yearly income at private poker tables in 1 bad night. And here she was, fighting for survival with a dignity that shamed me. I reached into my jacket slowly, so as not to startle her, and withdrew my checkbook. The leather cover alone probably cost more than her couch. I wrote quickly, tore out the check, and handed it to her. $25,000. Her hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped it. "I can't. This is... No one just gives... It's not charity," I said. "It's repayment. For what your mother did for mine, and for what you do every day for your children." End quote. Tears spilled over. She pressed the check to her chest like it might disappear. Amara crawled into her lap, worried. "Mommy, why are you crying?" "Because I'm happy, baby, for the first time in a long time." Number 2, my phone buzzed. I stepped into the narrow hallway to answer. "Dr. Kim Soo-jin, I'm outside," she said. "With everything Mrs. Issa Brooks needs." Wales. I opened the door. The doctor entered carrying a medical bag and a portable oxygen monitor. She greeted Chloe with professional warmth, then knelt by Dolores's chair for a gentle examination. Blood pressure, pulse oxygen, memory questions. When she finished, she turned to Chloe. "Your mother's dementia is advanced, but treatable. I'm prescribing new medications better than what county assistance provides. A home nurse will start tomorrow, 3 days a week. All covered, thereofs Chloe's mouth opened. Closed. Covered. How? Doctor. Kim glanced at me. A generous benefactor. And well, I watched Chloe's face cycle through shock, disbelief, overwhelming gratitude. She swayed, and I caught her elbow again. The now familiar spark leaped between us. Outside the window, headlights swept across the curtains. 2 cars slowing down the street. Victor's men again. Or someone else testing boundaries. I moved to the balcony door, peered through the blinds. A dark sedan idled at the curb. Engine running, Park's voice in my earpiece. Boss, we've got company. Same crew as earlier. They're just watching for now. I had to know. Keep them there. I murmured. Don't engage unless they move toward the building. Is a mentioner. I returned to the living room. Chloe had noticed my tension. They're here because of us. Aren't they? They're here because of me. I corrected. But yes, my world doesn't like change. This no of so wise. Fear flashed across her face. If something happens to you because nothing will happen to me. I knelt in front of her, took both her hands, and nothing will happen to you. I swear it on my mother's memory. Where le minsted night way. Amara tugged my sleeve. Will you stay till Santa comes? The innocent question pierced me. I looked at Chloe. She nodded almost imperceptibly. I'll stay as long as you need, I said. We moved the children to their small bedroom, 2 mattresses on the floor. Shared blankets. I read them a story from a worn library book while Chloe tucked them in. When they finally slept, we returned to the living room. Dolores had dozed off in her chair. Doctor. Kim quietly packed up and left with a promise to return in the morning. Chloe and I sat on the couch, close but not touching. The silence stretched, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally she spoke, voice barely audible. This feels like a dream, and I'm terrified I'll wake up tomorrow and it'll be gone. The money, the doctor, you, is well too. I turned to face her fully. It's not a dream, and I'm not going anywhere. I cupped her cheek, thumb tracing the path of a dried tear. She leaned into my touch without thinking. Then I kissed her again, slow this time. Deep, pouring every ounce of the love that had exploded into my frozen heart tonight. She kissed me back with the same desperation, hands sliding up to grip my shoulders as though anchoring herself against a storm. When we broke apart, her eyes searched mine. What happens now? Now, I said, voice rough with emotion. I make sure you never have to be afraid again. Is not Welsey. Outside, the snow kept falling, blanketing the harsh edges of the city. Inside, in a bare apartment on 89th Street, a man who had ruled through fear began learning how to live through love. And for the first time in 25 years, I did not feel alone. The kiss on the couch deepened until we were both breathless, hands clutching as though the world might tear us apart if we let go. Chloe's fingers dug into my shoulders with a desperation that matched my own. When we finally pulled back, her eyes were dark, wide, shimmering with tears and something far more dangerous hope. I need to check on the kids, she whispered. Voice unsteady. I nodded. Releasing her reluctantly, she slipped into the small bedroom, leaving me alone in the dim living room with Dolores' soft breathing and the distant sound of snow tapping the window. My phone vibrated again, silent mode, but insistent. Park. I stepped back onto the balcony, cold air hitting my heated skin like a slap. Talk to me. With Instu them, boss. We followed Ji-hoon after the alley. He didn't go home. He met 2 of our collectors at a bar on Olympic. They were counting cash envelopes from half our businesses, holiday bonuses. They called them extra protection money no one authorized. And the words landed like ice water in my veins. Ji-hoon's one of ours? Low level. Reports to Dong Min. Been skimming off the restaurant takes for months. Tonight, he panicked when the drawer came up short, framed the waitress to cover his tracks. Thanks for watching, then I look for your head. I closed my eyes. The storm inside me, already a hurricane, turned black. One of my own men had created the very injustice that brought Chloe to her knees tonight. One of my own had chosen the poorest. A most vulnerable target, because he thought she was disposable. The betrayal burned hotter than any rival's bullet ever could. Bring them to the warehouse on 5th Plain, I said, voice flat. All three, quietly. I'll be there in 30 minutes. It's per 7 of the 7 time-o. I ended the call and stood in the snow a moment longer, letting the cold numb my face. Inside my chest, guilt and rage collided with the new, fragile love I felt for Chloe. How could I go to her with hands that had allowed this? How could I promise protection when my own house was rotten? I went back inside. Chloe was in the kitchenette, filling a kettle with water that barely trickled from the faucet. She turned when she heard me. Smile, small and shy. Thought we could have tea. It's just generic bags. But I crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into my arms again. She stiffened in surprise, then melted against me. I have to go out, I said against her hair. Business. But I'll be back before morning. Oh, fear flashed across her face. Is it because of earlier? The men outside? Partly. I cupped her cheeks. But mostly because I need to fix something. Something I should have seen coming. End quote. She searched my eyes. Will you be safe? The question simple. Trusting nearly undid me. I'll be safe, I promised. And so will you. Well, those. I kissed her once more, soft. Lingering, then forced myself to leave. The warehouse on 5th Street was one of my quieter properties. Concrete walls. No windows. Soundproofed for conversations. When I arrived, the overhead lights cast harsh shadows. Ji-hoon, Dong-min, and the third collector, young kid named Seung, sat tied to metal chairs in the center. Park and 2 others stood guard. Ji-hoon looked up as I entered, face swollen with fear and cheap liquor. Mr. Kang, I can explain. I raised one hand. Silence fell. I walked a slow circle around them. Suit jacket, unbuttoned. Hands clasped behind my back. The rage inside me was cold, now precise. Surgical. Explain, I said quietly. Ji-hoon stammered. It was just extra holiday money. Everyone does it a little. The businesses can afford. Han Sung BBQ can afford it? I stopped in front of him. The restaurant where a single mother works 16-hour shifts to feed her children and keep her sick mother in medicine? He swallowed. I turned to Dong-min. You approve this? He shook his head frantically. No. Boss, I knew they were collecting. But I thought it was standard. Standard? My voice cut like glass. Since when is extortion standard in my organization? I pulled out my phone. Opened the security app linked to Han Sung's cameras. I had already had Park pull the last 3 months of footage. I held the screen so they could see. Ji-hoon slipping envelopes from the register. Pocketing tips. Marking. Ledgers. False. Then tonight, him leaning over the drawer. Blocking the camera. Planting suspicion on Chloe. I set the phone on a table where they all could see Chloe's face on freeze frame. Head bowed. Tears falling. Children clinging to her legs. This woman, I said, voice deadly calm, was accused because of you. Her children watched her humiliated on Christmas Eve because of you. Her elderly mother, who once saved my own mother's life, was dragged into it because of you. With notorious, the room went still. I leaned down until I was eye level with Ji-hoon. You didn't just steal money. You stole dignity, hope, safety. Thanks for watching, end quote. He began to cry. I straightened. How much total? Park stepped forward with a ledger. 42,000 over 4 months. Mostly from our smaller spots, restaurants, dry cleaners, flower shops. Is the messes. Every dollar a family like Chloe's went without heat or food. The guilt crashed over me in waves. I had built this empire to protect myself from ever being helpless again. Instead, I had created a machine that preyed on the helpless. I turned to my men. Empty their pockets. Every cent goes back plus double from my personal account. Every business gets repaid tonight. Envelopes on their doorsteps before sunrise. To Scribeless 2, then to the 3 in chairs. You're done. No more work in this city. You leave with what you're wearing and the bus tickets I'm providing. If you ever come back, you won't leave again. Dead, 1-2. No violence. No blood. Just exile, the worst punishment for men like them. They were let out, sobbing. Park lingered. Boss, this changes things. Word will spread you went soft. Is not now. I met his eyes. Then let it spread that I went just, end quote. He nodded slowly, respect. And something like relief. I drove back through the snow, mind racing. When I reached the apartment, the lights were still on. Chloe opened the door immediately, as though she had been waiting. You're back, she breathed, relief flooding her face. I stepped inside, closed the door, and pulled her close. She wrapped her arms around my waist, head against my chest. It's fixed, I said. The man who framed you, he worked for me. Indirectly. I didn't know, but I know now. And it's over. Art, she pulled back, eyes wide. He worked for you, I nodded. The shame was acid in my throat. My organization has rules. He broke them. He's gone. The money he stole from businesses like the restaurant, it's being returned tonight. All of it. I'm 7. Her knees buckled. I caught her. Lowered us both to the couch. I caused this, I whispered. Indirectly. My blindness, my empire, is mindless. She cupped my face, astonishing bravery from someone who had every reason to fear me. You didn't cause it. You ended it. 2030. Tears burned my eyes again. I don't deserve your forgiveness. You have it anyway, she said simply. We sat like that until dawn crept through the blinds, her head on my shoulder, my arm around her. The children sleeping soundly for the first time in months. Outside, my men delivered envelopes across the city. Quiet apologies in cash from a man who had finally remembered what power was truly for. Inside, I held the woman I loved and felt the weight of 25 years of ice begin to melt. The second twist had shattered me, but in the breaking, I was becoming something new, something worthy, perhaps, of the miracle sleeping in my arms. Dawn was still hours away when I slipped out of Chloe's arms on the couch. She had fallen asleep against my chest sometime after the children's. Breathing evened out in the next room, exhaustion finally claiming her after a night that had shattered every certainty she owned. I covered her gently with the quilt, lingered a moment watching the soft rise and fall of her breathing, then stepped onto the narrow balcony for air. The snow had stopped. A thin white blanket covered the cracked asphalt below, softening the harsh lines of the parking lot. The rusted cars, the overflowing dumpsters. Christmas lights from a neighboring balcony blinked red and green across the snow, cheap plastic icicles bought on sale years ago. Half the bulbs dead. The cold bit at my face. But I welcomed it. It kept the storm inside me from boiling over. My phone showed 4 missed calls from Park and a text. Victor wants a sit-down. Says you crossed a line tonight. Midnight tomorrow. Neutral ground. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. The betrayal in the warehouse still burned fresh. One of my own men had preyed on the weak on Chloe, and I had missed it. How many other injustices had I allowed while I sat in my penthouse counting money that came from fear? The guilt was a living thing now, clawing at my ribs. Footsteps behind me, soft, hesitant. Chloe appeared in the doorway, wrapped in the quilt, hair loose around her shoulders. Eyes shadowed with worry and sleeplessness. You're still here, she whispered. Relief and disbelief mingled. I told you I would be. I was no. She stepped out beside me, shivering instantly in the cold. Without thinking, I shrugged off my suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It swallowed her frame, sleeves hanging past her hands. But she pulled it close gratefully. We stood in silence a long moment, watching the quiet street. A stray cat picked its way across the snow. Somewhere a car engine coughed to life and faded. I keep waiting to wake up, she said finally. Voice small. This can't be my life. Checks for $25,000. Doctors coming to the house. A man like you sitting on my couch all night. And I turned to face her. The balcony light caught the exhaustion in her face, the faint lines around her eyes from years of squinting at overdue bills in dim light. The hollows beneath her cheekbones from too many skipped meals so the children could eat. Chloe, I said quietly, there's something I need to tell you. Is the mast? Fear flickered across her expression. She braced herself. Quilt pulled tighter. I'm not a good man. The confession scraped out of me. The restaurants are real. The money is real, but they're only part of it. I control other things. Gambling, loans, protection. The men you saw tonight, the ones outside, they work for rivals. Because what I do, it makes enemies. To our heaven, Bree says, her breath clouded in the cold. She didn't step away, but I saw the wariness return. I've hurt people. I continued. Voice raw. Ordered things I can't take back. For 25 years I told myself it was survival. After my wife died because of me, I built walls, became untouchable. But tonight, when Amara grabbed my sleeve, when I realized your mother saved mine, those walls cracked. Tenender, I took a step closer. She held her ground. I discovered one of my own men caused your pain tonight. He stole, he framed you, and I didn't see it. My empire hurt you before I ever helped you. In a virtue, tears welled in her eyes. But she didn't speak. I'm telling you this because you deserve the truth. I can't undo my past, but I can change what comes next. I will protect you, the children, Dolores, with everything I have. End quote. Her lower lip trembled. Why me? She whispered. Out of everyone in that restaurant. Why did you choose to help us? I reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, I cupped her face in both hands. My palms were warm against her chilled skin. Because the moment your daughter looked at me with those trusting eyes, something in me remembered what it felt like to be human. Because your mother's kindness 33 years ago gave me a mother and a life. And because my voice dropped to almost nothing. Because when I look at you, I feel something I thought was dead. Love. Real. Terrifying. Burn everything down. Love. There's no taps. The words hung between us in the frozen air. Chloe's breath hitched. Tears spilled over, tracking down her cheeks to pool against my thumbs. She searched my face, looking for deception. Finding none. I'm scared, she admitted in a broken whisper. I've been scared so long I forgot what it felt like not to be. Men like you, they don't fall for women like me. This doesn't happen. Works of, it's happening, I said fiercely. Then I kissed her. Not gentle this time. Not tentative. The kiss was sudden, desperate. All the pent-up emotion of the night exploding between us. My hand slid from her face to her waist, pulling her hard against me. She gasped into my mouth, then kissed me back with the same hunger years of loneliness, of carrying everything alone, pouring out in the crush of her lips against mine. The quilt fell forgotten to the balcony floor. My jacket slipped from her shoulders. We didn't feel the cold. Her hands fisted in my shirt, pulling me closer as though afraid I might vanish. I backed her gently against the railing, one arm around her waist, the other tangling in her hair. The kiss went on and on, deep, consuming, a conversation without words. I tasted salt from her tears, Felt her tremble not from cold but from the overwhelming rush of feeling safe for the first time in years. When we finally broke apart, foreheads pressed together. Both of us were shaking. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered against my lips. "I don't know how to trust something this good." "It's due. Then let me show you," I answered, voice rough. "One day at a time." As she nodded, tears still falling. But a small, wondering smile touched her mouth. We stayed on the balcony until the sky began to pale in the east, wrapped around each other under the blinking Christmas lights. Two broken people daring to believe the world might allow them happiness after all. Below us, Park's men changed shifts silently, keeping watch. Victor's crew had retreated hours ago, but I knew the storm was only beginning, and for the first time in my life, I was ready to face it, not with fear or force, but with the woman in my arms and the family sleeping inside. Love had found me on the coldest night of the year, and I would fight to keep it with everything I had. The sky had turned the color of pale steel when we finally stepped back inside from the balcony. The cold had seeped into our bones, but the heat between us burned hotter than any radiator. Chloe's lips were swollen, her eyes bright with tears and wonder and a fear she could not quite hide. My jacket still hung loose around her shoulders. She clutched the lapels as though they were the only thing keeping her upright. We moved quietly into the living room. Dolores slept on in her recliner, breathing steady. From the bedroom came the soft sounds of the children dreaming. Chloe paused at the couch, quilt forgotten on the floor outside, and looked at me with an expression that tore at my heart, part invitation, part plea for reassurance that this was real. I closed the distance between us in 2 steps. My hands found her waist, pulling her gently but firmly against me. She came willingly, arms sliding up around my neck, body fitting to mine as though we had been shaped for this moment across lifetimes. "Min-jae," she whispered, my name trembling on her lips like a prayer. "I don't know what I'm doing." "It's trying to." "Neither do I," I admitted, voice rough. "But I know I can't stop." Node. Then we kissed again. This time there was no hesitation, no careful exploration. The kiss was fierce, immediate, all-consuming. Her mouth opened under mine with a soft sound that went straight through me. I backed her against the wall beside the kitchenette, one hand bracing beside her head, the other tangling in her hair to tilt her face exactly where I needed it. She kissed me back with a hunger that matched my own years of loneliness, of holding everything together alone, of believing no one would ever want the weight she carried. Her fingers dug into my shoulders, pulling me closer as though afraid the night might steal me away. I felt her tremble, not from cold now, but from the overwhelming rush of feeling wanted, feeling safe, feeling chosen. I poured everything into that kiss. The remorse for my past, the gratitude for her mother's long-ago kindness, the fierce protectiveness that had exploded into my frozen heart the moment Amara grabbed my sleeve. We broke apart only when breath became impossible. Foreheads pressed together, gasping. We stayed locked like that, bodies flush, hearts pounding in frantic unison. "I've never felt anything like this," she whispered against my lips. Tears slipped down her cheeks again. But these were different release, not sorrow. "It's too much, too fast. I had to break the school dot." "I know," I said, voice ragged. "But it's real. It's doesn't action." She laughed, a soft, broken sound that was half sob. "Real doesn't happen to me. Real is overdue bills and empty refrigerators and praying the car starts one more time. I cupped her face, thumbs brushing away the tears. "Real is happening now, and I'm not letting it go. We have a knot with things alles." Her hand slid down to rest over my heart. She could feel how hard it beat for her. "I'm scared I'll mess it up," she confessed. "I don't know how to be with someone like you. I don't have fancy clothes or know which fork to use or—" "I don't want fancy," I interrupted fiercely. I want you. The woman who works double shifts with a smile for her children. The woman who stretches 3 eggs into breakfast for 4 people. The woman who kissed me back like she was starving for it. It's not now. She made a small sound, half laugh, half cry, and rose on her toes to kiss me again. This time, slower, deeper. A promise rather than a storm. My arms wrapped fully around her, lifting her slightly off the floor so she didn't have to strain. She felt so light in my arms, too light, and the knowledge of how much she had sacrificed twisted the knife of guilt deeper. When we parted, she rested her head against my chest. I could feel her heartbeat racing against mine. Stay, she whispered. Just stay till morning. See, absolutes. I carried her to the couch, carefully, reverently, and we lay down together under the single quilt. She curled into me, head on my shoulder. One hand splayed over my heart as though checking it was still there. I held her close, one arm around her waist, the other stroking her hair. Sleep did not come easily for either of us. Every so often she would shift, press closer, as though reassuring herself I hadn't vanished. I would tighten my hold and kiss her forehead, her temple, the corner of her mouth. In the quiet hours, doubts crept in for me. How could I bring her into my world? The rivals circling already, the blood on my ledger, the men who would see her as weakness. But every time the fear rose, I looked at her sleeping face, peaceful for the first time in years, and the love surged stronger, drowning the doubt. This was worth any risk. Near dawn, Amara padded out of the bedroom, rubbing her eyes. She stopped when she saw us on the couch, blinked, then smiled a sleepy well, trusting smile. The nice man stayed, she whispered to herself, satisfied, and went back to bed. Chloe stirred at the sound. Her eyes opened, met mine in the gray light. Still here, I murmured. She touched my cheek wonderingly. Still here. Thanks for watching. So for Kit Marked, we kissed again soft now. Morning sweet. The fierce passion banked into something steady and enduring. Outside, the snow began to melt under the rising sun. Inside, in a small apartment that had known too much hardship, love raw, instant, overwhelming, had taken root. And I knew, with a certainty that both terrified and exhilarated me, that I would spend the rest of my life making sure it grew. Christmas morning arrived, with weak sunlight filtering through the blinds, turning the thin layer of snow outside into a fleeting, fragile beauty. I woke first on the couch, Chloe still curled against my chest, her breathing deep, and even the first truly restful sleep she had known in years. I suspected. The children's soft voices drifted from the bedroom as they discovered the envelopes I had quietly placed under their little tree during the night. Grocery gift cards, new coats in their sizes, toys chosen with care by Park's wife. I lay there a long moment, feeling the steady beat of Chloe's heart against my ribs, and allowed myself the rare luxury of hope. For a few hours, the world outside had felt distant. But the phone on the coffee table vibrated once insistent. Urgent, Park's name on the screen. I eased away from Chloe without waking her, slipped into the kitchenette, and answered in a whisper. Talk. Ask Ozing. Boss, Jihoon's dead. Found in an alley off Olympic 2 hours ago. Throat cut. Professional. Victor's crew is claiming it was your order retribution for last night. Words spreading fast. They're saying you declared war by hitting one of theirs. Is a dodge. The words struck like a physical blow. I gripped the counter, knuckles white. Jihoon, the fool I had exiled with nothing but a bus ticket, dead before the sun rose. I had not ordered it, but someone had used my name to light the fuse. How bad? Bad. Victor just put out the word, blood for blood, and they know about the family in South LA. They're calling her your weakness. 2 cars are already heading that direction. Well, it is a fastage. The line went dead in my hand. Everything inside me turned to ice. Then to fire. I stepped back into the living room. Chloe stirred, eyes fluttering open. The smile that started on her lips died when she saw my face. "What is it?" I knelt beside the couch, took her hands in mine. They were cold. "The man who framed you last night, he's dead. Murdered. Someone is using my name to start a war. And they're coming here, tonight." Where the tempter, her face drained of color, she sat up slowly, quilt falling away. "Coming here? For us? For me?" I said, "Through you." Their word. Terror flooded her eyes. She pulled her hands free, wrapped her arms around herself as though the room had suddenly dropped 20 degrees. "The kids, Mama," her voice cracked. "We were just starting to feel safe. Was no for Appet." The words gutted me. I had promised safety. One night. And already it was crumbling. I stood, mind racing through options. Pack what you need for a few days. Warm clothes. Medicine for Dolores. We're leaving in 5 minutes. There'd not count Wells. She nodded numbly. Moving on. Autopilot. I woke the children gently, told them we were going on an adventure to a big house with heat and food. Amara's eyes lit with cautious excitement. Jaden clung to his mother, sensing the fear. Dolores murmured confusion as we bundled her into her coat and wheelchair. Downstairs? 2 of my Escalades, idled at the curb Park had anticipated. But as we emerged into the bright morning, a dark sedan turned onto the street from the far end. Moving slow, predatory. Victor's men. Early. Park's voice in my earpiece. "Boss, they're here. 4 in the car. Armed. 37. I pushed Chloe and the children toward the lead vehicle. "Get in. Now." "Azadast." And quote, she hesitated at the door, eyes wide with panic. "Min-jae, I'll be right behind you." Quoting, the sedan accelerated. I stepped into the street, directly into its path. Arms spread. The driver braked hard, tires squealing on wet asphalt. 4 doors opened. 4 men stepped out, faces I recognized from Victor's crew. The leader, a thick-set man named Dimitri, sneered. "Move. Kang. We're here for the woman and kids. Blood debt." End quote. So, with that 7 die way, I did not move. "You will not touch them." "Well, Saint," Dimitri laughed. "You killed Jihoon." Victor says hello. "It's the Bedno. I didn't kill Jihoon." "18s. He shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Message is the same. I think, with Thatter behind me." I heard the Escalade doors close. Engines rev. Park's voice, ready to go. "Boss. W2. I kept my eyes on Dimitri. "Tell Victor if he wants me. He comes himself. But this family is off limits. Forever." 2. In Despa 7, 2-1 noted. Dimitri's hand moved toward his coat. My men emerged from both sides, 6 of them. Quiet. Disciplined. No weapons drawn. Just presence. The standoff lasted 10 seconds that felt like hours. Dimitri looked at his men, at mine, at me standing alone in the street. Something in my eyes, the absolute certainty that I would die before letting them pass, made him pause. He spat on the snow. "This isn't over. There's things were logs." They got back in the car and drove away. I stood there until they turned the corner, then climbed into the second Escalade. Chloe reached for my hand immediately. Fingers ice cold. Trembling. "Where are we going?" "My penthouse. Downtown. Secure building. 24-hour guard. You'll be safe there." "10 the same," she nodded, but tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Amara leaned forward from the back seat. "Are the bad men gone? For now?" I said. Jaden began to cry quietly. Dolores patted his hand, murmuring, "Hush. Baby, Angel's watching." "Haper," The drive north felt endless. Chloe stared out the window, face blank with shock. I held her hand the entire way, but she barely squeezed back. When we reached the tower glass and steel rising above the city, the contrast hit her like a slap. Valet parking, marble lobby, private elevator to the top floor. The doors opened directly into my home. Open plan living with floor-to-ceiling windows. Heated Italian tile. Art on the walls that cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. Chloe stepped out slowly, looking around as though she had entered another planet. The children's mouths fell open. "This is your house?" Amara whispered. I nodded. Chloe turned to me, eyes swimming. "We don't belong here. Ever. You belong wherever I am," I said fiercely. She swayed. I caught her before she fell, guided her to the leather sectional that overlooked the city. She sat, head in hands. "I thought it was over," she whispered. "One night of feeling safe, and now we're running. Because of you, because of me, and certain sins." The pain in her voice was a blade in my heart. I knelt in front of her. "Listen to me. This is my fault. My world bleeding into yours. But I will end it. Today. It's some demand." She looked up, eyes red. "How?" "I'm meeting Victor tonight. Neutral ground. I'll make him understand." "Oh, US bed." Fear flashed again. "And if he doesn't, then I'll make him regret it." "Don't Rathens." She reached out, touched my cheek with trembling fingers. "Don't die for us." It's nodded. The plea broke something in me. "I won't die. I promised, but I will live for you. All of you, Distowing, and we are first stylists." I pulled her into my arms. She clung to me, sobbing quietly against my chest, the weight of poverty, of sudden hope, of renewed terror, all crashing down at once. The children watched from the doorway, confused and frightened. I held her until the storm passed, whispering promises into her hair. Outside the windows, Los Angeles sparkled below us, beautiful, merciless. Inside, in a palace built on shadows, a family that had known only survival began to learn what protection felt like. And Kang Min-jae, the man who had ruled through fear, knelt on my own floor, holding the woman I loved, and felt the full, crushing weight of what it meant to have something precious to lose. The third twist had come on Christmas morning, but I would not let it take them from me. Not ever. The private elevator doors closed behind us with a soft hiss, sealing the family inside the sanctuary of my penthouse, 42 floors above the city. The noise of Los Angeles fell away to nothing. Only the faint hum of the building systems and the distant murmur of traffic far below remained. Chloe stepped out first, carrying Jaden on her hip. The little boy's head swiveled, eyes huge at the expanse of polished marble, the soaring windows that framed the skyline like a living painting, the sleek modern furniture that cost more than most people's homes. Amara followed, clutching Dolores's hand as I wheeled the older woman inside. The children's worn shoes squeaked faintly on the heated floors. Chloe set Jaden down and turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. Her face was pale, expression unreadable, part awe, part disbelief, part something close to pain. "This is yours?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "All of it. This come was no for W2 did." She walked to the windows, pressed a hand to the glass. Downtown sparkled below us, rivers of light from cars, the glow of skyscrapers. The distant ocean, a dark band on the horizon. Snow from last night still dusted the rooftops, turning the city into something almost gentle. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Then, softer, "But we don't belong here." Minister, the words struck deep. I crossed to her, wrapped my arms around her from behind. She stiffened at first, then leaned back against me. "Exhausted. You belong anywhere I can keep you safe." I said against her hair. Jaden tugged at my pant leg. Is this a hotel? No. Buddy, I answered, crouching to his level. This is home. For as long as you need. Duwas. Amara wandered toward the kitchen, mouth open at the sub-zero refrigerator. The 8-burner range. The island big enough for a family feast. Mommy, there's food in here. Lots. When with Crescested, Chloe turned, eyes filling. She crossed to the open refrigerator stocked that morning by my housekeeper with fresh fruit, milk, eggs, vegetables, meats, things they had gone without for months. She closed the door slowly, pressed her forehead to the cool stainless steel. I don't know how to thank you. It's not no, you don't, I said simply. You just let me take care of you. Is the brains. I showed them the guest wing 3 bedrooms with ensuite baths. Walk-in closets larger than their old living room. Soft linens. Towels thick as clouds. Televisions they could control with a remote. Chloe's hands trembled as she touched the comforter on the king bed in the largest room. This is for Mama, I said. The bathroom has a walk-in shower with grips. I'll have a nurse here within the hour. We're luft. Dolores smiled faintly from her wheelchair. Fancy, she murmured. Like a palace. There's not was not wanchin. The children claimed the room with twin beds overlooking the city. Amara bounced once on the mattress testing, then looked guilty. It's okay, I told her. Bounce all you want. And well too. While Chloe settled Dolores and helped the children change into new pajamas I had delivered earlier. I stepped into my office and made calls. More security on the building, eyes on Victor's known spots. A discreet doctor for a full checkup tomorrow. When I returned, Chloe was in the kitchen, staring at the stocked pantry as though it might vanish. I came up behind her again, arms around her waist. Eat something, I said softly. She shook her head. I'm not hungry. A lie. Her body was still running on fumes. I turned her gently to face me. You have to take care of yourself now. For them, for me. 7. Her eyes searched mine. This feels like borrowing someone else's life. That's noted. It's yours now, I said. All of it. There were the readed. She swayed. Sudden dizziness from exhaustion and shock. I caught her. Carried her to the master bedroom, my bedroom. She didn't protest. I laid her on the king bed, pulled off her shoes, covered her with the down comforter. Sleep, I whispered. I'll be right outside the door. End quote. Well intends too that the tents deploted the tents to see. She clutched my hand. Stay, please. It's actually here to bid you. Well, the sidend is to the privis and the menicus. I lay beside her, fully clothed, holding her until her breathing evened out. The children were asleep in their room. Dolores dozed with the television on low. The penthouse was quiet, but I did not sleep. I stood watch all night, first in the hallway, then on the balcony overlooking the city, then pacing the living room with my phone in hand. Every shadow below seemed a threat. Every car that slowed on the street below made my pulse spike. Park texted updates every hour. Victor's men circling known locations. Rumors flying. No direct move yet. At 3 a.m, headlights swept the private drive far below. A single car. I watched from the window as it stopped at the gate. Idled. Then turned away when security approached. They were testing. I went to the children's room. Stood in the doorway watching them sleep safe. Warm. Bellies full for the first time in months. Amara had kicked off her covers. I tucked them back gently. Then to Dolores's room. The nurse had arrived. Checked vitals. Adjusted medication. The older woman slept peacefully. Finally, to my bedroom. Chloe had shifted in her sleep. One hand outstretched as though reaching for me. I lay beside her again. Pulled her close. She murmured my name without waking. Nestled deeper into my arms. I held her and made silent vows. I would end this tonight. Whatever it took. As dawn crept pink across the skyline, I kissed her forehead and slipped away to prepare. When she woke hours later, I was in the kitchen making breakfast, simple things. Eggs, toast, fruit. The children ate like they had never seen food before. Chloe watched me with quiet wonder. "You cook?" she asked. "I'm learning," I said. After breakfast, I knelt in front of her on the living room rug. "I have to go out tonight. Meet Victor. End this." "It's not" was really in the next inning. Fear flooded her face. She gripped my hands. "Take me with you. This is Benjamin's." "No." The word was steel. "You stay here. Safe. The building is locked down. 20 men on rotation. No one gets in. I think." She searched my eyes. "Promise you'll come back." 2S. I pulled her into my arms. "I promise. I have too much to live for now." "No, Kang." Amara and Jaden hugged my legs. Dolores patted my hand from her chair. "Be careful." "Son?" Everyone. The word son nearly undid me. I kissed Chloe once more deep. Desperate. Pouring every ounce of the love that had consumed me overnight. "I love you," I said against her lips. The words came easily now. "I love all of you. BY. Servant's X." She clung to me. "I love you too." Voice breaking. "Come home to us." It's doesn't it? I left the penthouse with her taste on my lips and their faces in my heart. The elevator descended 42 floors. I stepped out into the lobby a different man than the one who had entered it yesterday. No longer alone. No longer cold. Ready to fight not for territory or respect, but for the families sleeping safely above me. I would guard them all night. Every night. For the rest of my life. And I would never leave. The abandoned parking garage beneath the old textile factory on Alameda Street smelled of motor oil, rust, and the faint metallic tang of fear. 3 a.m. No street lights reached this level. Only the headlights of my black Escalade cut through the darkness, throwing long shadows across cracked concrete pillars. I had come alone. No park, no backup, just me. A plain black coat over my suit, and the weight of $25,000 in cash inside a leather briefcase. Victor waited exactly where he said he would, leaning against his own black Mercedes. Arms crossed. Gold chain glinting under the single flickering fluorescent bulb. 4 of his men stood 10 paces behind him. Hands visible but ready. He had brought muscle. But not enough to start a war. He wanted to talk first. I stopped 10 feet away, set the briefcase on the ground between us, and raised both empty hands. "I came alone," I said, voice calm, carrying across the empty space. Victor's eyes narrowed. "You killed my man, Ji-hoon. Word is you gave the order." I gave no order. Someone else used my name. But I'm here to end it tonight. No more blood." End quote. He laughed short. Harsh. "You think cash fixes this? You took a waitress and her kids into your penthouse. Made them untouchable. That makes you weak, Kang. And weak men bleed." I took one step closer. "My weakness is my strength now. That family is mine. You touch them, you touch my wife, my children, my mother-in-law, and I will burn your entire operation to the ground. Every warehouse, every dealer, every safe house. I will do it myself, and I will smile while I do it." Inazari. Victor's smirk faded. He studied me the way a man studies a gun he isn't sure is loaded. "You're serious," he said quietly. "Deadly serious." "It's not about..." I nudged the briefcase forward with my foot. $25,000. Cash. Untraceable. Take it. Call Ji-hoon's death a message from someone else. Walk away from South Los Angeles. Walk away from 89th Street. Walk away from my family. Forever. Yes. Silence stretched. One of his men shifted weight. Another coughed. Victor looked at the briefcase, then at me. You'd give $250,000 in one night to protect a black waitress and her kids? I already gave it, I said. This is just to make you understand, I mean every word. As video, he stepped forward slowly, opened the briefcase. Stacks of hundreds looked back at him. He closed it again. You're throwing away everything you built, he said. For them. Then, I'm building something new, I answered. Something worth more than territory or fear. Not Lee. Victor stared at me for a long beat. Then he laughed again, this time softer. Almost disbelieving. You really love her. Now, more than my life. Thanks for watching. And quote infinity. He picked up the briefcase. Tell your woman she can walk her kids to school tomorrow without looking over her shoulder. Tell her Victor said so. The funner in the dock. He turned to his men. We're done here. I have seen. They got into the Mercedes. Engines started. Taillights receded up the ramp and disappeared into the night. I stood alone in the empty garage for a full minute, letting the adrenaline drain. My hands shook not from fear, but from the sheer force of what I had just done. I had handed over a fortune. I had risked everything. And I had done it without hesitation. Because upstairs in my penthouse, Chloe was waiting. Because Amara had called me nice man, with complete trust. Because Jaden had hugged my leg before I left. Because Dolores had called me son. And quote, I drove back through the empty streets of Los Angeles. Dawn was breaking pink and gold over the skyline. Snow from 2 nights ago had melted completely. The city looked new. When the elevator opened on the top floor, Chloe was already standing there, wrapped in one of my robes. Hair wild from sleep. Eyes red from crying. She saw my face and ran. I caught her in midair. She wrapped legs and arms around me, sobbing against my neck. You came back. She choked out. You came back. Will this bear ya? So have a come, I promised. And every one, she kissed me fierce, salty with tears, full of every fear she had carried all night. I kissed her back just as hard, walking us backward until we reached the living room windows. The city woke below us while we held each other like the world might still try to tear us apart. When we finally pulled back, she searched my eyes. Is it over? It's over, I said. Victor took the money. He gave his word. No one will touch you again. In heaven too, she began to cry, harder relief this time. Deep and cleansing. I was so scared. I kept thinking, if you didn't come back, I couldn't breathe. His way. I wiped her tears with my thumbs. I will always come back. Always. They're not knees. The children ran out, then Amara in new pajamas. Jaden rubbing his eyes. They saw us hugging and piled on. Dolores rolled in behind them, smiling softly. We stood there, 5 of us wrapped in each other's arms while the sun rose over Los Angeles. Later that morning, Chloe and I sat on the balcony with coffee. The children played inside with new toys. Dolores napped in the sun. Chloe leaned her head on my shoulder. I still don't believe this is real. Thanks for watching. I kissed her temple. It's real. And it's ours. Tegtas. She looked up at me, eyes shining. I love you. Min-jae. I love you so much it hurts. It's Duthas. I love you too, I whispered. More than anything I've ever known. Below us. The city kept moving cars. People. Life. But up here, in this glass tower I had once called a prison, a family had finally found home. I had risked my life tonight. I would risk it again tomorrow. And every day after, because that family, my family, was worth every single breath I had left. Word count 2012. Would you like me to write the final part 14 right now? The beautiful Valentine's Day epilogue with the new shop? Tiny hanboks? Deep kiss in front of the children? And the wedding promise? Or would you prefer I first create a short 3-sentence YouTube video title plus thumbnail description that would get millions of views for this whole story? Just say write part 14 or make the thumbnail and I will do it in the next message. Valentine's Day 2026 dawned bright and warm over Los Angeles. The kind of California winter day that feels like spring. I stood outside the little storefront on Melrose Avenue, hands in my coat pockets, watching the final touches being added to the sign above the door. Brooks Blooms and Sweets, flowers on one side, Korean desserts on the other. Chloe's dream. Made real? 6 months had passed since that Christmas night when everything changed. 6 months of learning how to be a family. 6 months of quiet battles behind the scenes to keep old shadows away. Victor had kept his word. The city had moved on. My empire had shifted. Less fear, more legitimate business. I still held power, but I wielded it differently now. The door opened, and Chloe stepped out, wiping her hands on an apron embroidered with tiny roses. She looked beautiful, hair pulled back with a new ribbon, cheeks flushed from arranging bouquets, eyes bright with a joy I had never seen before that Christmas. She saw me and smiled, the kind of smile that still stopped my heart every time. "You're early," she said softly, coming into my arms. I couldn't wait. That's aspirated. Inside, the shop was perfect. Fresh flowers filled buckets along one wall, roses, lilies, sunflowers flown in from local growers. On the other side, glass cases displayed Chloe's creations. Red bean taiyaki, hotteok with cinnamon filling, delicate pat bingsu in small cups. A small coffee bar in the corner served Americanos and Korean barley tea side by side. Amara and Jaden ran from the back room, wearing the tiny custom hanboks I had made for them, soft pink and blue silk, embroidered with butterflies. Amara spun, the skirt flaring. "Look, Daddy, we match!" The word daddy still caught in my throat every time. I knelt, arms open. They crashed into me, laughing. Dolores sat in a comfortable chair near the window, silver dangy pin gleaming in her hair, watching with peaceful eyes. Her health had improved steadily. New medicine, good food, no more cold nights worrying about rent. I stood and crossed to Chloe again. She was arranging a final bouquet, red roses and white lilies. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small velvet box I had carried for weeks. Her breath caught when she saw it. I opened it slowly. Inside lay a simple platinum band with a single diamond, nothing flashy, just eternal. "Marry me," I said quietly. "Make this official. Make us a family in every way." And Dovero's tears filled her eyes instantly. She looked around at the shop I had quietly bought and renovated for her, at the children in their handbooks, at Dolores smiling from her chair, at the life we had built from the ashes of one desperate Christmas Eve. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. Min-jae. 1,000 times yes. It's seen. With court." I slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. Then I kissed her deep, slow, full of every promise I intended to keep. The children giggled. Dolores clapped softly. When we pulled apart, foreheads touching, she laughed through happy tears. "We're getting married." And Graces, "We're getting married," I echoed. Later that evening, after the shop closed for its grand opening day, and customers had come and gone with smiles and well wishes, we sat together on the balcony of the penthouse, now our home. The children slept inside. Dolores, too. The city lights spread below us like stars fallen to earth. Chloe leaned against me, ring catching the moonlight. "I never thought I'd have this," she said softly. "A home, a business, someone who loves me like you do." Caption of minus a doing. I kissed her temple, and I never thought I'd have someone to come home to. Someone who makes me want to be better. "Dob," she looked up at me. "You saved us." He deserted. We saved each other. And 726 for universe staying. Love had crossed every line society draws: race, class, past sins. Wealth and poverty had stood in the way, but love had walked right through them. Compassion had won, Humanity had won. Knowledge of kindness repaid across generations. Life lesson in second chances. Education in the power of one moment of courage. Knowledge that no one is beyond redemption. Life lesson that love is the only empire worth building. Education in forgiveness. Knowledge that family is chosen, not born. Life lesson in gratitude. Education in hope. Knowledge that true strength protects the vulnerable. Life lesson in letting walls fall. To every viewer watching this story, may you carry these truths with you. I wish you all good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about love that defies boundaries, please subscribe to Crimson Romance Stories. Like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear that hope still exists. Tell me in the comments, how did this story make you feel? Does it remind you of real life? Have you ever seen love overcome impossible odds? Share your thoughts, your emotions. I read every one. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.